Today, we're deconstructing The White Stocking, one of D.H. Lawrence's most psychologically intense short stories. And believe me, this isn't just some quaint old-fashioned tale. It's a story that absolutely rips the cover off a seemingly normal marriage to show you the fierce, sometimes ugly struggle for power that's simmering just beneath the surface. So this story first hit the scene way back in 1914, and it is a total masterclass in building tension. It all kicks off with a simple gift, but Lawrence uses this one little thing to explode these massive themes: our raw primal instincts, the subtle wars of class and gender, and a really challenging philosophy of what love is. And this is the question that really sits at the heart of the whole thing. The story gets ignited by a mysterious Valentine's gift that shows up for Elsie and Ted Whiston. It seems so minor, right? But it acts like a spark, setting off this chain reaction of jealousy, desire, and eventually violence that forces this couple to confront what their bond is actually made of. To really get how Lawrence builds this incredible tension, we're going to peel this story back like an onion, in 5 layers. We'll start with a basic plot, then dive into the psychology of the characters, decode all the hidden symbols, and then we'll zoom out to see the world it was written in. And finally, we're going to confront the really dangerous idea at the very core of it all. Okay, first up, the plot. Now what's so brilliant here is that Lawrence doesn't just tell the story from A to B. He messes with time, jumping back and forth to build suspense, and show us that the fight they're having today has really deep roots. This timeline kind of maps it all out for you. We start in the present. Elsie gets this package, and immediately, Ted's suspicion goes through the roof. That triggers a flashback, sending us back 2 years to a Christmas party where her wealthy boss, Sam Adams, actually snatches one of her stockings. Now, that flashback isn't just backstory. No, it's the gasoline for the fire that finally just explodes in the story's climax. Alright, let's peel back another layer, because this story isn't just about what happens. It's a deep dive into the raw, messy, and often contradictory emotions that are driving these characters. Lawrence basically gives us a love triangle where the real conflict is happening inside their heads. Desire, insecurity, and jealousy. These are the big forces tearing everyone apart. You've got Elsie's desire, which is all tangled up in her vanity and the effect she has on men. Then you have Ted's desire for Elsie, which is so intense it spills over into possessiveness. But the real trigger? It's his insecurity next to his rival Sam Adams. That's what lights the fuse on his deep, consuming jealousy. And here you can see the two opposing forces that are pulling at Elsie. On one side, you have Ted, her husband. He's the permanent, sure foundation, her stable working-class guy. And on the other side, Sam Adams, her old boss. He's the catalyst, wealthy, a bit predatory, and he represents this thrilling but totally superficial excitement. So this isn't just a love triangle. It's a clash between stability and sensation, and Elsie is smack in the middle of it all. But don't think for a second she's some passive victim. Oh no, the text actually calls her a minx. She's vibrant, and she's driven by this impulse for excitement. She loves Ted for sure, but there's a part of her that's unfaithful in spirit, letting herself get mentally fused with Adams. Her provocative little actions, like dancing around in that white stocking, it's a dangerous game. She's testing the limits of her husband's power over her. Okay, time for the next layer. Lawrence was an absolute master of symbolism, and, in this story, everyday objects are just loaded with meaning. They become these physical stand-ins for the psychological and sexual power struggles playing out between the characters. I mean, the white stocking itself is the biggest symbol of all. You hear white, and you think purity, innocence, right? Well, that is deeply ironic here. As a piece of intimate clothing, it represents female sexuality. But when Adams grabs it at a public party, it becomes a symbol of his invasion into the private, intimate space of Elsie and Ted's marriage. It becomes a fetish, a trophy. And the other gifts from Adams, the jewelry, are just as loaded. They're basically symbols of a transaction. Adams, the rich boss, uses them to try and buy Elsie's affection, using his money to assert his power. And for Elsie, yeah, they feed her vanity, but they also represent this corrupting influence that's seeping into her marriage. And finally, there's the mirror. And this isn't just simple vanity. It's a symbol of her fragmented identity. She sees herself as an object to be looked at by other people, especially men. It's her way of checking out from the complicated reality of her marriage, choosing to be a beautiful image instead of a fully present partner. Now, this intense personal drama doesn't just happen in a bubble. It is deeply, deeply rooted in the social world of early 20th century England, a world with super rigid class structures and very clear roles for men and women. The story was published in 1914, and you cannot forget that context. Details like Elsie working in a lace factory or Ted being a tradesman, that stuff grounds the story in what you'd call domestic realism. It means their personal fights are completely tied up with the social and economic pressures of their working-class life. The rivalry between Ted and Adams is absolutely a class conflict. Ted is the employee. He represents honest work, but he has limited means. Adams is the employer, who represents wealth and all the power that comes with it. So when Ted finally explodes, it's not just sexual jealousy. It is the rage of the disempowered working man against the boss who thinks he can own anything and anyone he wants. Right. These social positions literally define the power dynamics. Adam's money gives him this sense of entitlement, while Ted's working-class status fuels the deep insecurity that leads to his violent explosion of authority in his own home. And this brings us to the core of the onion, the most challenging, and let's be honest, the most controversial layer of this story, D.H. Lawrence's radical worldview. To really get the story's shocking climax, you have to understand his philosophy of human nature. See, Lawrence had this concept he called blood consciousness. He believed that modern civilized life had kind of deadened us, made us weak. For him, real life, real vitality, wasn't found in rational thought or social etiquette, but in the deep, primal, and often violent instincts of the body. In the story, Elsie isn't making a logical choice to flirt with Adams. She's responding to what Lawrence calls his biological magnetism, almost like she's in a trance. And this right here captures Lawrence's pretty unsettling equation for what a passionate relationship is. He argues that a real marriage isn't about being peaceful and comfortable. No. True balance, what he calls permanent surety, is found through intense, painful conflict. In his world, pain isn't the opposite of love. It's actually a key ingredient. So this all leads to that climax where Ted strikes Elsie. And let's be crystal clear. From any modern perspective, this is abuse. Full stop. But if we want to understand what Lawrence is doing as an author, we have to look at it through his philosophical lens. He presents this violence as having a function. Elsie is psychologically gone, lost to the ghost of Adams. Ted's blow is a violent shock to the system, a desperate attempt to shatter her trance. The analysis suggests it acts as a kind of exorcism that kicks the intruder out and forces them back into a raw, painful, but ultimately real connection. Now, on the surface, the story ends in a familiar way. After the